say who I am?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Darcy Voutt. I make music, and is that it for the starting point?
That's pretty good.
Okay.
So when did you start like producing and everything?
I started making music in two different ways. So like I started when early in 2000, back when I was in high school as a rapper.
Okay.
And I was like that was like the only thing at the time, but I enjoyed like the recording process and learning about that. I didn't
Yeah.
really touch a lot of production at that time. But I like was just focusing on rapping for a few years, and then I got into college and went down a whole different path of things and stopped making music for a period of time. And about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, around that time frame, I'm trying to put it to a year, but I can't remember. I started getting back into production. I just got the even though I wasn't making music, I was still always kind of writing it in my head, and the itch was always there. And so I've always had this thing where I always wanted. There's always like a sound in my head that I'm trying to get to, like a caliber of audio of audio and music that I want to achieve, and I can't leave the planet without trying to achieve it. So I just got the itch and I started getting back into production like 5-6 years ago.
What like are you all self-taught, or how did you learn? You just watched YouTube videos, or did you take some classes?
Yeah, I'm mostly self-taught. I've taken a few different things. So like in high school, they had music class, and I went to music class and learned a little bit about singing, though I can't sing at all. I learned like a little bit. When I mean a little bit, like I can't remember because it's a lot of years ago.
Yeah.
I want to say like 2 years ago, I did some drumming lessons,
Okay.
which really helped a lot with just thinking about rhythm, and it changed my production style like for the better. Like, or I want to say it more like it brought out the thing that was already in my head, but I didn't know how to like
laying it down.
understand it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was just also like an appreciation for layering sounds in rhythm, like in percussion and whatnot, that gave me this like, oh, now that I can kind of see it in my head, I can also see what I'm missing a lot of times when I was producing.
Yeah.
So I've done a bit of that, and then hell, a lot of YouTube, but who hasn't done a lot of YouTube for anything?
Gold knowledge on there, man. Like you want to learn anything, like how to fix something in your car, go on YouTube. You don't got to go to the mechanics. Like,
yeah, but I mean, with all things, you gotta be a bit of a detective. You gotta check your sources. You gotta check like you gotta like watch the same thing from 3 different people to see how much common information there is or how much
exactly that way.
misinformation there
Because
is.
someone could just be like, "Hey, set your bass to 10 dB. It's gonna sound great." And like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, and that could be relative in a song, but
Yeah.
you have to like learn. I mean, that's a lot, but you have to learn about uh like approaches and techniques, and then at a certain point you have to realize how much you have to throw out and how much you have to like just do your own thing too.
Yeah, it's like what to take, what to keep. What works.
Yeah.
Negative. It's got to be balanced. Negative, positive
Yeah.
space. So when did you meet up with Petey? Like when did you guys start? How did you guys meet?
The first time that Illmind came to Toronto for the Pass the Aux event, we were both attending that event as producers, and I can't remember if Petey showed music that he was rapping on or if he just showed beats.
Yeah.
I showed music that I was actually rapping on my own music, and I put that out. So at the time I was writing a bit more, and yeah, we met through that, and it was one of those like, yo, send me beats, whatever kind of a thing. So I sent him some beats because I feel he probably showed something about his rapping, but I can't remember. And so I sent him some beats, and he literally like I'd forgotten that I'd sent him beats. And it was like months later, and he just sends me this random freestyle on my beat, and we ended up putting the song out. It's called like Old School.
Yeah.
And it was just like the beat is a very like jazzy, sampley, like I feel like it was trumpets if I remember correctly, or like jazz or saxophones or something. It's just like very like brass styled kind of like beat.
Yeah.
And it was a weird how it kind of like the way he's rapping and the way that beat kind of meshed together. I was like, I would never have thought that these would mesh well together. And I feel like I probably sent him that beat as like, whatever this beat,
Yeah.
kind of a send. And then he sent me back and he was like, I was really interested by it. So I was like, I just jumped on and like, oh, let's like do something with this. So I just try to like build the beat, like take it apart and then build it around what he's doing. And put that track out, and that was a track that like a bunch of people liked. And we did that, and then we did like maybe a couple other tracks over a slow period of time. But then but we always stay in touch and chit chat and stuff like that. So we do like I think we did like 2 other songs over probably like 6 months.
Okay.
And then we went to BK's the camp event.
Yeah.
And he just started going to like every session, freestyle, jumping into everything. And I had learned about him that he's very for a producer, you usually deal with situations like you put out a beat with somebody and it might take months for the song to come out. Like I've worked on tracks that have taken like 9 months, you know, to get finished. And he's very like, he likes the beats. You send him a beat, he'll freestyle something. I'll be like, okay, I like the recording, but I'm gonna rearrange it like this. He's like, cool. And then I'll be like, I could send him like 8 beats, and then he'll be like, can you show up in the studio like a week from now? And he'll be like, cool. And he'll come back with like 5 songs, and just like he's just very fast and very, I want to say pliable, in the sense that like if you want to like, you know, work and build the song in some kind of way, he'll just be like, cool, unless it sounds like crap, then he would say something, right?
Yeah.
And so it makes it very easy. So I was like, at a certain point, I just kind of realized one day, and I was like, let's just like make a ton of stuff and put it out like every couple of weeks. Like there's not many people that can actually hit up to do volume like that, and would be comfortable just putting it out. So you know, that's kind of how the whole thing transpired. Sorry, you asked the question like, how do we meet? And then I just told you like our life story.
No, that's cool, bro. I love it. Like when I first found him, like I was like, I loved how much content you guys were dropping constantly. Like, cause like, I mean, I said to him before, I was like, all the other artists, it's so hard to find music right now. Like you guys already had like 4 songs out by the end of January or middle of February, whatever. And like everyone else has got maybe 1, if that. And so it's like, it's crazy because you guys are you're just going at it. You just song after song after song after song. It's lit. I love to see it.
Yeah. You know, the thing is like, it's just treating it like kind of like a job in a way, but like a fun job. Like I make beats and I don't make them with any intention. And I don't even send them full beats. I send them like 8-bar loops half the time. Right. And we're like, this is a cool vibe. Go with it. And he'll be like, this is hard. And then we just bundle them all up, and then we show up the studio and he'll have a bunch of song ideas that he'll record, and then he'll just freestyle to everything else. And then it's like up to me to take it back and to build records from it. And sometimes I'll be like, okay, these ones, like I have a list of songs on my computer right now. Like here's every one that we've completed. Here's the ones we still need more recording. Like he recorded a hook idea and that's all we have. Or yeah, it's good, but I feel like we need to record more. Or ones I'm like, I think I can make something happen out of this. I'm just gonna have to be a little surgical with what I'm doing. But then it's just kind of like building them up, and we just do them in bulk. We just do a bunch in bulk, and then it's just scheduling it. So now we have like a schedule, and we know where we're running out of songs and when we gotta get back in the studio to make more.
Right? Because you guys are dropping every 2 weeks right now, right?
Yeah, we're dropping every 2 weeks. And we have to get in the studio. We haven't been in the studio since November, partly because of COVID, obviously. But I couldn't believe it. In a 4-hour recording session, that man recorded 8 tracks.
That's fucking productivity, man. Oh my god.
Yeah, like the song that just came out called 5-Minute Freestyle is literally a 5-minute freestyle that I've just edited to like improve a few things, because it's a freestyle. There's always going to be some stuff. So like if he screwed up a word here and there, like I found sound effects to replace the line, you know, except for one part where he screwed up and I like completely just cut the beat and let's screw up hang, because I thought that was a cool moment. It was just like, like put it out there. It's freestyle. Like it's supposed to be imperfect. But like it's just, he just goes in and he just you'll feel the vibe and he just goes off, and then you're like, all right, cool. Like that's a lot of content.
Yeah. It's not easy for people to do that. Like, I mean, I used to freestyle in high school, but like you have to constantly be doing it. And like for Petey to just knock off like 5, 6 songs like that's some talent right there, you know? Like, and I
Yeah.
mean, I love everything you put out. Every time I'm like, damn, like this beat's dope. The rhymes, I'm like, I never know what to expect next from you guys, but I know I'll always be like satisfied with it.
Appreciate that. I'm glad to hear that.
When are you guys planning to do your next studio session? Because I know we just came out of lockdown like yesterday. So I mean, things are going to slowly start to open up. Do you guys have an idea roughly, or?
Yeah, right now I've dropped, I don't know. I always have like a running folder with him. Because most of the time when I work with other clients, I'm just doing mixing.
Yeah,
And time is limited. So I just kind of make beats and I drop them in the folder. And then sometimes I'll make beats for other people specifically or other events and stuff like that. But I just have like a big group of them, and we're planning to get in within this month, because we recorded back in November. We only have so much stuff that was created from that point. So
yeah,
we have
yeah,
stuff that's kind of coming up, and we have maybe a few like collaborations and stuff that might fill some gaps. But we definitely like have it to a point where like we gotta get back in the studio, because we have a date that we have to get at least 1 or 2 songs ready for. Otherwise, we'll
yeah.
miss
You'll run out of content. Yeah,
we'll miss our window, which is still like a dope kind of thing. I love to say a phrase called champagne problems, but it's it we're not sitting here going like, oh, like maybe we'll get a song out like 3 months from now. It's like, no, we gotta get a song ready for like this date, and then hopefully we can knock out like 5 or 6 smashes, so we can like have them just going for the next 2, 3 months and just build up, right?
yeah. No, that's always the best way to do it. Because I mean, if you just knock a bunch out real quick, then like you said, it gives you 3 months rather than like 3 days to come up with some content, and then it's not as stressful when there's a smaller timeline. You're like, there's the pressure's on. And you're like, what am I gonna do, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And is a benefit of his writing process, which is like, him just, you know, taking the beats, come up with ideas, and then just sometimes he'll go off those ideas, and sometimes he'll just go off the top of his head. So
So, like I noticed you do all the little tutorials and stuff on Instagram. What program do you actually use? I like it kind of reminds me of Logic, but I know it's not Logic.
So the program I'm using is called Luna. It's made by Universal Audio,
Okay.
and it's they dropped it April of 2020. They actually planned to have dropped it, I think, like much later in the year, but because of COVID kind of popping off and stuff like that, they ended up moving up their release date.
Yeah.
Just I think it was just like everyone's gonna be stuck at home. When's the perfect time for people to learn a new software?
Right.
Right? Like when they're stuck at home. But like so, it was originally dropped as like what's called a recording system. So its original purpose was more like,
Just
do
the
you
vocals and
yeah, yeah. Actually, since we're talking to a larger audience, for those who may not know, Universal Audio makes a like a preamp, so like an audio interface, right? So they have many pieces of hardware, but the main thing that most people buy them for is their audio interfaces, right?
yeah.
And so their audio interface is a little different than some others. So most audio interfaces is here's a microphone preamp, it sends the audio into your recording software, and it'll send the audio back out your speakers. And they have a hybrid setup where inside the actual interface, it actually can process custom plugins that they made, and
Okay.
it can also change the way the preamp works. So they have it's called a unison preamp. I'm giving an ad for them right now, but like it like changes how your microphone sounds to like emulate real hardware gear. And so
That's cool.
they created this software. They already had software that would be like you could do those customizations, like how your
Within other
microphone.
DAWs, like
Yeah, you could use plugins within the DAWs, or you could even customize how this stuff sounds before it hits the DAW. So like a DAW before the DAW, like you're
okay.
recording live and affecting and compressing live, and then that gets recorded into the software. And so they basically came up with Luna, which is, well, instead of recording through our software to another software, how about we just have our own software that
Yeah.
you can kind of can control and do a lot of real-time stuff and just have a lot of benefits. So I checked it out because it was a free software if you've already paid for your hardware. So I checked it out, and I ended up just liking its workflow a lot more.
Yeah.
than I was using Logic, and I just liked the workflow. And I'm a big believer of um, when you're a kid, right, and you only have like one little Casio piano, right,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's all you can use. You will be so creative with it if you only have that one thing. But if you have 100 Casio pianos, then you struggle to decide what to do,
Yeah, because you're like,
right?
which one do I use? Should I use this one? Is this one gonna sound better? But it's like you
Ex-
just have that one sound. You're like, you're gonna put more into it because you got to be more creative.
yeah, exactly. And I was really changing my mindset around production around that time because I was finding that Logic was and the options I had, I was just like not doing things.
Yeah.
And so when that Luna came out, it was also like an opportunity for me to learn something that's new. I like the idea of being a first mover advantage. Like I would learn everything about the software because I would learn everything from the day one. Everybody else would be learning. And if I
Yeah.
stayed consistent learning it, then I would be like, those guys like, yeah, I know everything about Pro Tools, like everything. It's like, but then you're coming in like 20 years later, you're like, there's so much to learn. Like I actually know as much as like any of the top level Luna person out there. I'm probably in that caliber because I've been using it since the first week.
Yeah,
Like,
because I mean,
I just,
as they add new features, you already know the base features, so it's not hard to learn that extra one little thing. Whereas like someone who's coming brand new to Pro Tools, say they got to learn the whole thing, and it's like, oh my god, that's a lot of stuff to absorb.
exactly. And even though there's like not all the features, the workflow for me, I just found, I was like, wow, this is like really speeding me up. And I just like that it kind of put me back into that state of like being that kid where it's like, you know, you don't have 10,000 options all the time, but it makes me be really creative. Like the way that I like chop samples in it is like super simple and rudimentary. But then I also don't see a lot of people doing that very often because they're like grabbing a plugin, and I'm just like, well, I'm just doing it like normal editing. But I don't use plugins because I
Yeah,
don't have some of them. So
right. And I mean, some of them get crazy expensive. Like Omnisphere is $500 just for, So it's unless you got a little bit of extra spending cash on the side, it's like you're stuck with the stock shit.
yeah. And there's also the problem when it comes to producing that like I hate the idea that like when I want to quickly do something, I gotta go grab the plugin, load something into the plugin, and then start doing something. Like I want to go from idea to it's there. Like I will drag in a snare into the like just wave and move the wave around because I find it physically like or time wise faster than loading up a plugin.
Yeah,
And that time for me is like that's the creative time. Like I get the vibe, snare in, okay. Oh, now I want this sound. Splice. All right, that's in. Okay. Like I don't want to be like plug in, search, search,
yeah,
search. What was the idea again? Like I don't want to lose it.
yeah. And it's like you got to loop down maybe like, oh, C B A, and then you're like you finally find that sound and you're like, oh, what was it?
Yeah.
And then
It's,
it's gone.
especially those plugins that gotta load like we're gonna load 19 gigs of data, and it's like you're spinning wheeling and then you're getting frustrated at the spinning wheel. And that moment you get emotionally frustrated at the spinning wheel, don't forget you're a producer. You're emotionally reacting to the music. So your
Yeah,
emotions just shifted
yeah.
to
So now the
something
whole
it's
beat's
not.
gonna be different. It's like, oh god.
Yeah. Or you're just distracted to forget because you emotionally were shifted to something else.
No, that's the big thing about producing. Like I like to produce. Like I'll just close my door. I sit in here. I just work through my thing. Because like if my roommates come in or whatever, and they like start playing around, then it's like, oh, I like to like I take from different parts. I might start building with something, but then later on I'll be like, oh, this could work better. And then you tweak some stuff, and it's like, but if they come in and tweak it, it's like now I might not do what I would have did later on when I got
Yeah.
to that point. It's like so it's nice just have your own process, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Process workflows, everything. I'm jealous, and I'm learning more from watching those videos where guys are like and gals are sitting at home and they got like their microphones always set up kind of like how this is on like an arm, and they have like instruments around them and they know like the short keys to like hit record real fast, like the arm a
Yeah.
track and get it ready because they're just gonna be like, oh yeah, I got an idea, and start playing,
Yeah.
like there's that speed of like just getting the ideas out.
I wish I knew how to play more instruments. Like I can play a little guitar. I know one song, and then I can blow a trumpet, but I don't know any songs. Um, but yeah, I mean, I find the biggest things for production, like every producer should probably know, is like you took the drum course, or drum lessons, and then piano. Piano and drums are probably the most important, like in terms of beat production, because I mean, the drums are like the heart of the beat, and then your piano usually ties in like a melody or whatever, and that
Yeah,
translates across most instruments. I mean, guitar is a little more complicated when it comes to the keyboard, but generally everything else you can just make
yeah.
something up quick, you know?
Funny thing is, I actually can't play the piano.
No?
No, no, I can't play piano. I know enough from just constantly looking at like what scales are,
Yeah,
and I
like muscle
have it to a
memory.
point where like I can't play two-handed piano, but what I can do is be like, oh, this is my scale, and I won't lie, like I will go on Google, be like, what's the scale again? Cool,
I do.
I see it, and then I'll just be like, I literally will just do this. I'll grab it and I'll go like, oh, okay, so it's these like keys in this order, and I just like run through it a couple of times, get my fingers memorizing it, and then I just play in that scale.
My
Like
favorite thing to do, man. I'm always pulling up the scales. It's like there's so much shit to remember. How can you, you know?
it it's so janky. I've actually, so like I also am like a web developer, and I'm like, I built like this calculator app one point, and I'm like still like thinking like I just kind of want to, I might build just like a web page. It's just like, here's the key, and then it just shows you on the piano what it is. And you just can change the key, because I hate having to Google it, then go to find images, and then I'm like searching through the images to get the one I like, and I'm like, I just
Right?
want like a big visual web page. It's just like C minor. There it is.
See, I realized in Fruity Loops they have like a little trick. If you go into view when you're in your piano roll, you can like place down the scale itself on the board, and then you just mute it. And then,
Yeah.
do they have anything like that in Luna or?
No, MIDI editing in Luna is their biggest place for growth.
Okay.
Their main focus, and one of their primary examples a lot, is about how efficient recording is and editing is, especially like their main example would be drums, right?
Yeah.
When you record drums, you're multi-tracking, multiple mics at the same time, and then everything is played like all the notes and stuff are played at the same time. Like all the tracks look fairly identical. And so you can record all real time, process real time, hear in your ears, like actually mixed sound in real time.
Yeah.
And then you can do really fast edits where you can like grab like 50 tracks at once and make like warp changes to all tracks simultaneously. That's like their like bread and butter of what they're promoting. But their MIDI stuff, like it needs some work. And I'm a big proponent of giving feedback, so I've given some feedback to them through their channels, and like like this MIDI needs to be improved in some certain ways, and even in some really simple ways.
Yeah.
So it's just so like I believe that they need to like mimic Fruity Loops. Like I've tried Fruity Loops. I used to use Fruity Loops years ago, like
Yeah.
when I was rapping, and I
That's my
try a little
go-to.
bit. Yeah, like I had like 5-6 beats at Fruity Loops, and I don't like a lot of how it's laid out for me, because I come more from like an old school multi-track mindset.
Yeah.
But I won't lie, that MIDI editor and that grid editor for like drums, I'm like, yo, like it's straightforward.
Right? It's super. I try to find other shit like that. Like, and that's the reason I've stuck with Fruity Loops, is just they don't have the same like sequencing, and it's like it's hard to do that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I see people do that like Fruity Loops, like painting in the MIDI, and I'm like, I'm jealous. I don't want to
For
use your
real.
software, but I like it.
No, yeah, and it's crazy. Like there's so many different ones out there. I'm constantly coming across new DAWs. Like I found one when I was going to school. Reaper is really good for vocals as well. My buddy used that. Um, there's all kinds of obscure ones, and Logic's better for like composing and arrangement and shit like that. And then Pro Tools is like straight up, I don't even know, recording. I it's just become the industry standard. So it's like everyone just uses it because you're supposed to.
Yeah. Well, and it's really big for post production, especially like, people working on like movies and audio, like podcast, not podcast specifically, but like a lot of like higher end like audio stuff. Um, but totally random question to you: what is the oldest and craziest like DAW that you can think of or recording software you've ever used that like people don't use?
It was this basic ass shit. You can get it. It's like free. Not Mixcraft. No.
I mean, for Audacity or
Audio
something.
Audacity. Yes,
Yeah,
Audacity. God damn, that shit's
yeah.
so ghetto.
Oh man, I used that back in the day. The one that I used significantly for a period of time, it today it's called Adobe Audition, but I used it when it was called Cool Edit.
Really?
Yeah,
Damn.
yeah.
How do you like Audition? Because I actually have it. I didn't know like it was really good for that shit.
Oh, I know. I wouldn't use it. Like no, it's like it's Cool Edit is more, and it's like Audacity. Like Audacity and them are more like, give me a sound file and let me edit that sound file.
Okay.
And then over time they added multi-tracking stuff, but they weren't really geared for music. So they were better for like Adobe Audition would be highly used in, I went to radio school for a period of time, and it's highly
Okay.
used there because they would be doing stuff like, it's really fast for doing a lot of quick processing. So in a radio, they would do something like, they would say, oh, call in, but blah 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 blah. In the next 5 minutes, you can win a free whatever. So someone would call in, and they would actually be calling while they're doing like commercials or playing music, and they
Yeah.
would record the interview like offline, but like record it in real time, and they'd be recording it into Cool Edit. And as the person's talking, they're like editing it while they're like, so you would see like the recording, and then they'd be like editing stuff and like process. Once they get off the call, they'd be like, all right, normalize, boom, all right, edit at this, like cut, and it's so fast
That's
for doing that
crazy.
stuff. But but that's not like a multi-track music post-production kind of thing. That's like, I need to quickly normalize, quickly compress this thing, chop off the ends, find the silences and delete any like static that's coming in. Like it's really fast at doing
just
that
like
stuff.
let it clean it up and then get it ready to just go.
Yeah, and you could build like a preset that would run through like multiple edits back to back. So you could just be like, hit this, and it would just run your process, and you're like, all right, looks good.
Have you worked with very many artists other than PD? Like, what have you, like, you just do rap? Have you done many other genres? Like, what does your catalog look like?
So mostly rap, done some R&B stuff. Recently put out a song with a woman named wow, why am I forgetting her last name? Ren Kelly. And like, that moment where you're like have to say something out loud, and I'm like, did I just say it wrong? Like now I'm like bugging. I was like, let me just like double check I didn't say nothing wrong.
No worries.
But yeah, and artist name shows Ren Kelly featuring Ray Reeves, and it's a song called Wounds. We've done a couple of different tracks I've worked on, but that was one where I did a co-collaboration with another producer named DK. So that was a recent record, and I have a couple other artists that I've worked with that haven't released the stuff yet, in terms of being more R&B, and then I've just worked on some like rap stuff that's like not typical, like stuff that just sounds a little bit this way, a little bit that way. But just several different artists, and I do engineering, mixing, and mastering for people. So I've done a bunch more records that are mixed and mastered that get promoted a little bit differently because when I'm producing, I'm obviously like
you're more behind the scenes, like.
Yeah, and there's just like a different makeup, right? Like when you're engineering, you're just more providing a service, and when you're producing, you're more invested in the future of the song.
Yeah, because you almost at that point you basically become like a songwriter on the song, so you would get a royalty percentage. So whereas the engineer would just get like a straight pay, like here's $1,000 for the day, whatever.
Yeah, depending on how much putting into the song and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I definitely I'm all about like the royalties of the future of a song. And so that's definitely how I'm looking at it, and as well I'm involved. It depending on the situation, but because I came from being an artist and I have a real appreciation being a rapper for lyrics and whatnot, I really like, I'm not just producing like, here's a beat and it's a cool loop and throw something on it. I'm thinking about the whole arrangement of the track
Yeah.
and building like moments in the song. And
Drops and
so
builds and
yeah, and listening to what the artist is saying and trying to see if there's interesting ways to make you feel something based off of what's being said.
yeah, or yeah,
Um,
like accented almost, like just kind of, add more emotion to what's there.
yeah,
You really take it
exactly.
in.
Yeah, 100%. You know, it's funny. Recently, so that song I mentioned, the song "Wounds," um, uh, the song came out and they had an article talking about it, and they called out specifically an instrument that I added to the track. They said it was synths, but it was strings, and I keep joking with my other producer, I'm like, it's strings. I want to correct them, but it's strings. And they called out like what it did to the song in terms of emotion. And the funny thing about all of that is that like, one, both myself and the other producer interpreted the song as a metaphor, and it was way more literal. And we ended up finding it out in the interview, and we're like, oh my goodness, like this song is like it means way more than we thought it did, because the artist didn't really tell us that. She just like, make the
Yeah.
record good, right? And I added these strings, and I guess they added a specific emotion for the people listening to it because of the interpretation of the song. But for me, I was like just feeling the song, and I was like, this part feels dull. Like,
Yeah.
I
Like it
just
needs a
need,
little something.
yeah, it just needs a little something. So I was like kind of playing, and like, that felt good. It's funny how like things come out, and then they're like, oh, this synths like perfectly complement the emotion at this point in the song. And I'm like, bro, you thinking about it way differently than I did.
Yeah, it's like I was just winging it.
I literally was just like, yeah, that felt good. Like it was like 3 tries. I was like, cool.
You gotta love it when that happens, man. It's like that's when the best stuff comes out.
Yeah, to not overthink it and just to feel it.
You should actually send me that link for that song after. I'd be down to check that out.
For sure.
Have you worked with, like, do you collaborate with other producers at all, or you just produce strictly by yourself?
I'm definitely down for collaboration. I'm big on that. A lot of the times it's just people that I've like kind of built up a relationship over time.
Yeah.
And a lot of the ways that when I do collaborate, it's one, it might be that I'm contributing from a drum rhythm perspective. I usually get a lot of feedback that people just like the kind of bounce and stuff that I try to bring to stuff, and that I usually incorporate instruments that people would not anticipate me to
Yeah, it's like
incorporate.
kind of takes them off guard and like, oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I try to learn a little from Timbaland in that respect. And sometimes I just love to like just mash up a weird sound. Like I had like one beat that's got like a crazy sound, and people are like, "What is that?" And I'm like, "It is literally a weak snare going through crazy amounts of reverb with heavy distortion sitting on top of it."
Right.
And
Like I love to use animal sounds. Like I'll throw some peacocks in there, or like owl or something. Like you never know what's gonna spice up the beat, right? So it's like anything's game.
you know what you talking about, never knowing what to spice up. On one of these beats, I accidentally was like trying to EQ a certain area, and I was just trying to add like 2 dB, and I accidentally somehow, like, because I was using my iPad to make the beat, and I accidentally hit it where it went to a notch filter, like a super sharp one, and went
Yeah.
up like 20 dB. And I was like, and it immediately, like, you know how that sounds super weird and resonancy,
Yeah, yeah.
but it sounded dope. So I just like brought it back half, and I was like, no, we're leaving it like that. Like it's like a crazy EQ spike, like the kind you would never make.
Yeah,
And it
just
was, but it sounded like it brought it out, and it sounded like an instrument. It sounded like a synth because that one
sick,
frequency was super high. And I was like, that's the beat.
right? Oh man. Yeah, I mean, I'll pull shit from everywhere. Like it doesn't matter. You could I like to sample stuff from around the house too. Like I got piggy banks, I'll shake the piggy bank or something, or a jar with some shit in it, and then like you said, you pimp it out, throw a little some compression on it, some distortion, whatever, and then you got this whole new sound. It's like you wouldn't even be able to tell what it was before.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, collaboration, I'm always down. You know, usually it's just going to be like adding some extra sauce to a situation. Um, I'm also game for like the reverse in terms of like, um, me adding a starting point and giving it to somebody else. But the one thing I'm not a big proponent of at this point, probably because I just don't play piano, and so that kind of like limits me a bit in
Yeah.
terms of creatively, is um, just being like requested to be like, can you make a beat like this? And I'm like, I just don't. It doesn't tend to like when I have to like compare what I'm making to. I tend not to be able to be creative. Whereas when I'm being creative, I'm usually like, I'm gonna hit up Splice and I'm gonna check out some samples, or I got a weird idea in my head, and I'm going to like mash some crazy percussion and drums together and come up with something that has a vibe.
Yeah.
Um, but it usually has to come from a childlike place and not a make like this. Whereas if I was more musically trained and really proficient at oh yeah, I hear that that's a an A minor with an inverted seventh chord and all this kind of
Yeah.
stuff, and like can just kind of do that, kind of like the drum lessons, what that taught me. Then I could probably do more, because now I'm at a point where like I'm not a great drummer. I'm actually pretty on the low end scale, but I can see in my head now, like when I hear a song, I can see
Like where it's supposed
the
to go.
I can see the layers, I can see different things of what can happen, and I can see the groove differently, and I can feel it differently. And so it allows me to be like, if someone just says like make drums like this, I could probably do that quite easily. But if someone says make a whole beat like this, and I probably can't do all of that, because there's a
Yeah.
lot of other pieces to it that I'm like, I
Fills,
don't know.
rolls, all that shit. And it's like,
It's more in like the melody and the harmonies and stuff like that. I'm like, I just don't know what they're doing.
yeah, yeah.
So I would be guessing. And then there's a lot of guessing to be done. And then you're not really going to get that close when you're guessing. So.
That's why, like my one buddy I went to school with, I was really jealous of him. He's in a metal band, but like he's their drummer. But he does like production and stuff too, and he'll program all his drums. And I'm like, these sound like real drums, but it's like I could never, I couldn't just go on Fruity Loops and be like, and be like, okay, there's, but it's like he does because he knows how it's supposed to do it on the actual drums, so he can just throw it together, and it's like it's nuts. It blows my mind away. I wish I could.
Yeah, that understanding like things being early and being late and how they work. I definitely couldn't like just replicate perfectly real drums all the time, but I can definitely replicate more of like I can just tell, like listening to what's out there, like a little bit more of like what's actually going into it.
Yeah. So earlier, like you said, you don't use a lot of plugins for production, but like obviously you're gonna need plugins for mixing.
Oh yeah.
What are like some of your go-to plugins and resources? Like, what do you?
In terms of like production or mixing, because I still use plugins in production. I just try to limit them as much as possible,
Yeah,
because I
yeah,
just
yeah.
don't like the idea of opening and waiting as much as possible. So let me hit off my production ones, because that's probably simpler. So Luna has one called Shape, which is their own one. It's more like a sample player. So that meaning that like they've gone out and sourced a bunch of really high end companies like Spitfire and whatever.
Okay.
It's the only one I can remember off the top of my head, but they're like really high end, like Spitfire is like really high end orchestra sounds.
Yeah.
And they've licensed their sounds, and basically they're just kind of giving you, the ability to play it over the keys and make a couple tiny adjustments. And all the sounds in there are just freaking gorgeous. Like they're just, because it's Universal Audio and they got a lot of money. They just like they've licensed the good stuff. like I like literally go in there and I'd be like, they have bass guitars in there that I'm just like, bruh, like this is the free version. like, bruh. like this sounds better than most paid stuff. Like, and it's
Right.
on the free version. So I use Shape a lot to add any. I usually go to that for more realistic sounding stuff because it's more geared for that. I use Sublab a lot for 808s, but I use it not so much for its presets, even though that's why I bought it for originally, is because I love grabbing an 808 and dropping it in there, because it's super simple to like just lock it into the key and just make simple, like have it like time stretch and just do some simple filtering and stuff like that. I just
Yeah.
find it like a super dumb, simple plugin to use. And I also use battery a lot for hi-hats,
Okay.
just because I find copying and pasting audio of hi-hats, there's just too many copy and pastes. That's all. It's like
For real.
I can do it with snares and kicks, but like the hi-hats get a little bit annoying. And yeah, those are like, I would say my top 3 production ones. And then outside of that, like I started going into the mixing side. Some of the mixing ones I use that everyone would know would be like, I use RC20, but
Okay.
I use that with like a touch.
Yeah,
And
just
for
really,
yeah, you get
really generously.
yeah, you gotta be careful with that one. Like I like to use it, so I love using the wobble, which is obviously why everyone likes it. But I like to use it just to the point where you're like, I don't know why this grooves, but it grooves, and you just don't realize that it's just a wobble. And I don't want you to realize it's like a lot of wobble unless you have a really good ear. Um, Another alternate to that one that I'll use at times is called Dock Cassette, which I found on the iPad. And it's a similar idea in terms of adding, like, making it sound like a warped cassette tape. And it has a really cool wobble that's also just different. So,
Yeah,
but it'll sound way
has
more
like a
distorted.
really like textury kind of sound, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the thing can, you can distort the hell out of it. Like it's a sound like you're listening to it on a beat up cassette player.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm using a whole lot of Pro Q3. I love that plugin. EQ matters, and that plugin is just super beneficial. I'm trying to think of like, well, the ones that I go to, because like I have a whole lot of plugins that I'm touching every day, but it depends on the song. Like,
Yeah, like
go
what
on,
you're trying
you're
to
gonna
go for, what vibe you're aiming, and like that'll then pick and choose what you use that day.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Sound Toys. Like I love their Echo Boy, Alter Boy, Decapitator,
Yeah,
which
Alter
that
Boy
can
is
be
really good. Alter Boy. Crazy.
Alter Boy is sick. I actually have one. Here's one that I got as a free plugin from Plugin Boutique, because if you know Plugin Boutique,
Yeah.
they got all those like free ones every month now when you buy something. And I can't remember if it was like choose one of these 3 or this is just the one for the month, but there's one called Quadrovox, I think that's what it's called. Yo, just it's low key, like just super fire. So think of it like Doubler and Alter Boy put together.
Okay.
So like Doubler being like, Doubler 2 and Doubler 4 from Waves, where you can basically, you have your center voice and then you can make like extra voices.
Yeah.
It does the same thing, but it will tune those voices. You can say, oh, I want this up 3 semitones, and then put pitch correction on it, so it will like auto tune it to the key.
That's
And
sick.
you can do up to 4 voices quad. And I just like use it so much these days on like, it sounds robotic when you go up, and it sounds satanic when you go down, like Alter Boy will. But you can, when you just tune it and you fine tune it and you just work with it real nice, it can blend in such a way where, like, either as a weird interesting harmony idea, it sounds really nice, and it's super simple to use. So I've been using that a lot. I just got it as a free plugin, and I was like, let me just try it one day, and it's become a staple for me, like
For
on a
real.
lot of stuff, because it's just faster. Like, it's like I would use Doubler and Alter Boy together sometimes, and this plugin's just 2 of them put together for what I'm using it for. I'll use Alter Boy when it's more like a forward sound, where you really want to hear that vocal's pitch, because it's a better processor of it. But when it's like blended it in and you don't really need to hear the vocals,
Yeah.
that Quadrovox is everything.
What's next for you? Like what do you want to be doing for the next 5 months, a year, next couple years? What are your goals?
So, I mean, asking about my life journey right now, right? Like,
Yeah.
where's my life going? I don't even know, bro. No. Over the next, like, this year, my goals are, I had said like a number. I don't really want to say it out loud, but like I have like a number of like mix mixed tracks that I want to do. And in terms of records, you know, I want to see um, like the rest of the year where PD and I just keep pumping them out. And maybe at some point we'll do, because last year we did, before we started doing it every 2 weeks, we did an EP together. So
Yeah,
maybe
it
this
was like what,
year
5 songs, right, or something like that.
it was 6 or 7. I feel like it was 7. I think it was a seven track. It's called Why Not, and it was just
Yeah.
literally we couldn't come up with a name, and I was like, "Let's call it Why Not."
Yeah.
That's literally it. Like we did it because like why not do it? That was the whole point. So
Right.
so we'll probably do another one of those. I want to also jump on one of those tracks
That'd
at
be
some point
sick.
again. Yeah,
Do you have
I
like
haven't
any
been.
music out now, or like just old stuff? Like,
I have a few stuff on my thing, but they're old. The most recent one, probably the better one. I have a couple. Like there's one called Some Guy that I did, and another one called Facebook Post that are pretty decent. But they're a couple of years back now.
yeah,
The most recent track that I'm on is actually the one with PD, um, and that was a pretty dope track. But you know, I want to jump on some more. And I definitely like, because you were asking me about it, making me think about it more. I definitely want to do more collaborations
yeah,
on records. I find that really fun, and one of the things I enjoy is like producers I work with. Like for instance, at Track Wounds, you know, my boy DK, the producer, basically, he said like, I got this track, you know,
yeah,
it needs some mix, but I think it also needs some production. Can like let me know what you think. He sends it to me, and it was like, you know, we had like the basic instruments laid out and the vocals, but I just kind of went in and I was like just changing parts of the arrangement, adding things, whatever. And I
yeah,
like when I, you know, have that situation where it's like we have some ideas, but we need to it's very much like a rough demo, and I need to take it from a rough demo to more of a fleshed out song,
true.
and that's really enjoyable for me. I just love the process of crafting around an artist. So for me, it's just about finding more artists that I can, you know, kind of build a bunch, either help lift in an already existing track and add an extra bit of sauce on it,
Yeah,
or to find artists that are like Petey, and you know, you can just kind of give them like a whole bunch of like sampled ideas,
and they
right?
just
Just
go to
here's a
work. Yeah,
bunch of loops, and then just create stuff, and they're comfortable with that. They're not expecting like I need a fully fleshed out beat, blah 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 blah, and all this stuff. Like that's cool. Everyone's got their process, but for me, I'd rather be like, here's 8 bars, just rap or sing a bunch of stuff, and
yeah,
then send it back to me, and then I will take my loop apart and build it around you and see what you're doing and how we can bring more out of what you're doing. Like I don't want it to be like, here's the beat and fit yourself in the beat. I'd rather
yeah,
give you the vibe and then build the track around what you add to it.
yeah. Exactly. It's way better that way. I mean, Dre did a lot of that for Eminem's tracks and shit. So, I mean, anyone who's a fan of Eminem, you can see how it works. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I even have like a song idea in my head that I want to like achieve. It's just something we've all heard the idea many times. I just like it's been in my head recently of the really pared down track, like just drums and like an 808 and maybe like some tiny little sample or synth in the background that's like barely even there,
Yeah, like a
and it's
bell or
just
something. Just
voice. Yeah, yeah, but like just like the track is just all voice. The reason being is a lot when I mix, I will take I'll start with like some of the drums and then bring the vocals in and then bring the rest of the drums in.
yeah,
And sometimes when you, depending on the production, you add the other instruments in and you're like, it almost starts to take away from the song. You're like, oh, just the drums and the rapper is dope. Like it sounds
yeah,
so good. And you still got to bring the other instruments in and you make it dope by the end. But sometimes I'm like, I just want less instruments. I just want the rapper and the drums. And I want like
for
one
real,
other kind of thing to keep it interesting. And I want to, it'll sound so big because there's so little in there. So
right? Yeah, I've gotten a lot more into production, like just because of lockdown and everything. So I mean, and you got the time to learn, so it's been nice because you can really get into like doing that kind of stuff, just building around the vocals and taking the time to kind of really get it perfect and the way you want it, rather than just being like, I'm really swamped this week, we got to put up a song, blah, 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 like you were saying earlier. Just having lots of stuff ready so that you don't have to be as
Yeah, I feel you, bro.
I have a question for you. What do you use for your camera? Because like I love the quality you get in your tutorials and stuff on
Yeah.
IG, and I always thought you maybe use your phone, but then when you load it in here, I'm like, wow, okay, still the same quality. This guy's got a crazy camera. Fucking.
I appreciate that. Yeah, no, I'm using a Sony ZV-1. So for a long time, I'd been researching cameras and really wanted to get one.
Yeah.
And like years ago, I was doing some vlogging and stuff like that, and I was using like my iPhones
Yeah.
to do all my video stuff, which you can get pretty good, especially when you're like outdoor vlogging during the day. Your iPhone can get a lot done. Trust.
Yeah, you got the lighting.
Yeah, lighting is everything. Like I literally have 2 lights on me right now, like big lights. Okay.
I should have this lamp on here. I'm getting a lot of blue light off the screen.
Yeah. No, I totally feel you. And like I have one light that's like this one's a little bit better than that one. That one's a little bit like pinkish. But the Sony ZV-1 came out like during the middle of COVID, and it's the cheapest, like one of the cheapest like Sony cameras. So it's weirdly in the middle of the space between being a point and shoot camera and being like all the other Sony cameras that are more like DSLRs, but they're called mirrorless cameras. So like the ones you could take the lenses off. This one you can't take the lens off, but it's super fast at autofocus and it's super light. And for me, I wanted one for doing one Zoom calls, 2 for doing tutorials, and I wanted to have a setup where I have like both my camera and my microphone are both sitting on like desk arms and they're all connected and everything's like ready to go. So it's literally like I pull this out, turn the mic on the preamp, like pick the arm up for the camera, click the on button, and then everything's plugged into the computer and it just turns on and it recognizes and it's ready to go.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a dope camera. Sony's are the more expensive camera brands most of the time, but it's more on the affordable side. It's about $1,000 when I got it. Might be more or less. Like it's less in the States, obviously, great for them.
Yeah.
But it's about $1,000. And I think the price will be the same because Sony won't drop the price until they replace it.
Especially right now. So
especially right now. But they hold their prices for a long time until they replace that exact camera, where other ones tend to decrease a little bit faster.
Yeah, like once they come out with like a ZV-2, they'd be like, all right, let's drop it to 500 or something.
Yeah, and they'll drop it once you're like, but do I want the old one now?
Yeah.
Like you're really struggling. But yeah, no, it's super sharp, super quick. It's actually, the funny thing is that it's actually better quality than what you see in my YouTube channel or on my Instagram. The reason being, so it's plugged into like it looks like a USB stick that plugs into my computer, and so it's actually downgrading it. But the reason I record like that is because I'm recording like a live stream setup. So when I record my videos, I'm recording both my screen and my little window live, like a live screen, like live stream setup.
Yeah.
And I'm applying like color correction and everything to my camera in real time. Cause I'm just a big fan of like, I don't want to waste time. And I used to do a bunch of videos where it'd be like 6-7 hours to edit. And I'm like, I can't do that. Now I'm doing like 6 hours to edit 5 videos with 3 versions each. Right. So I record the video and I edit it for YouTube. Then I edit 2 versions for YouTube Short and then Instagram. So I'm doing like, when I do 5 videos, I'll record 5 videos at a time and I edit 15 videos. But I'm doing that in the time it would take me to do 1 video because I've just simplified the process. I'm really big on like cut out wasteful time to get the most out of it. So it actually would look better if I took it out of the SD card and plugged it in and showed you that recording. It would be higher quality.
That's crazy.
But I'm just like, no, I'm willing to sacrifice that quality for that speed. Right. I just want
it still looks amazing. So I mean, it's not like it's that, big of a deal to sacrifice that little bit.
it would have looked better. I had a different USB stick that was more expensive. Like the one I got, it's like $30, and the first one I bought was like 200. But it didn't work with my computer at all. Like it just
Oh,
didn't
shit.
turn on. So
That's
I was
weird.
like, I got rid of it and replaced it with a $30 one, and I was like, all right, whatever.
Yeah, right. Well, you got to do what you got to do.
100%. You know, it's about efficiency. I'm all about saving that time and still getting the same amount of output. So
For sure. You'll have to give me some tips because I mean, it takes me a bit to edit right now. I mean, I'm pretty new to editing videos still, so I'm still trying to get the hang of it. But yeah, for you to edit the same amount of videos in the time it takes me to do one, it's like, you know, it's crazy.
like all things, the same thing is true in music as it is with videography. In video, you plan your shot, right? As in you get good lighting, you think about how you're gonna angle everything, which is called composition, and you think about like what you're filming, right? Like if I'm filming a tutorial, like really think of beforehand, like what am I showing, and am I showing, like am I gonna say like 19 things I don't need to say, or can I just say like the thing I need to say?
Yeah.
Same thing as with music, right? Like, you know, think about what you're about to play, get a good mic set up, make sure you record it at the right level. Otherwise, you know, it's gonna sound like crap.
Yeah, you're
Or
going to do a lot of adjusting and mixing, and
yeah,
it's not worth it. It's easier to just re-record it.
yeah, you know, you played a poor piece of music. It's like a bad subject to film. It's just
Yeah.
so it's more of everything. Is the better you can record it, the better it will be when you edit it. The less work you have to do. If you record like a perfect clip, then all you gotta do is cut off the beginning and the outro, because there's just too much between you turning the camera off and turning it back off. Like it's
And that makes sense. It's like what they say, like, you know, like measure twice, cut once. Fucking. All right, man. Well, I don't want this to cut us short and then not have some of the video.
all good.
So fucking, I'll let you go. It's been good talking to you. I'm down to do this again soon, sometime if you're interested. We'll do like a little recap interview or something in like a month.
Sounds
When
good.
you and PD drop some more shit. Maybe we could do one with both of you. Who knows?
I'm down for that. I know he'd be down for that too.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll talk. We'll figure some stuff out. I'll let you know on the drop for this because I mean I still got a few other ones to edit. I've been behind because of all this stuff, and then yeah. But it should be soon, within the next week or so.
Yeah, all good. Yeah, just let me know. I'll be around.
All right, sounds good, man. Well, enjoy the rest of your night. It was good talking to you.
Absolutely, man. No, appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, no problem, man.
All right. Peace.
Have a good one.
You too.